welcome back. Our guest tonight is Ian DeSantis. Now, Ian contacted us. We've been talking a lot about the people who have their guns confiscated and plans to confiscate people who have mental disorders, mental disabilities, and whatnot. Now, Ian is somebody who has been a victim of this system, of the mental health system, saying that he was a danger to himself and others just because he was mildly depressed. Well, maybe not even depressed. He was a little bummed out, and let's use that term, after he lost his job and he called his mom, and all kinds of crazy things happened. So I'll let him explain his story. He joins us now via Skype. Thanks for joining us, Ian.
Thanks for having me, Jakari.
All right, now, Ian, let's take about 2 minutes. Let's go over the story about how this happened. So you lost your job, that's correct, and then you contact your mother, say, hey, I just lost my job, and I'm not feeling so hot. So take about 2 minutes. Tell us what happened in that conversation and what happened as a result of that conversation.
This was on Friday, May 18th of 2012, last year, and I just had lost my job and was just not feeling too good. I wasn't like depressed or anything, but just kind of wanting some support from my family. And I was trying to rekindle a relationship with my mom after we had been estranged for a few years. And I thought that it might be good to just let her know how I was doing. So I gave her a call and let her know I had just lost my job and that I might be selling some things to keep my apartment. But, luckily it didn't end up like that. But I was just letting her know what was going on. And the context of the conversation was just like pretty mild and just letting her know like what I was going through. And after that conversation, she called a suicide hotline and told them I was like unable to take care of myself and I might be a danger to myself and other people, and that she was aware that I owned a 10/22 rifle, and she let them know all that, and that's what basically triggered this all to go down the way it did.
Okay, Ian, so you contact your mother and she calls a suicide hotline. Now, based on that, the context, we'll get to that just in a second, the actual context of the conversation, but I'm aware that some sheriffs showed up to your house. Is that correct?
They blocked off the block where I live on. Like, I guess it's protocol in like a suicide case with a firearm. They've been called. They have to block off the neighborhood and let all the businesses nearby and go to a few residences and let them know what they're doing. And then they gave me a phone call when I was over at my neighbor's house, just trying to relax that day. I had been looking for work all morning and just wanted to spend the rest of the day kind of relaxing. I mean, I had just been laid off and I just wanted to clear my head a little bit. And then I get a phone call from one of the sheriffs. A sergeant asked me to step outside with my hands in the air. And I was really not sure what all this was about, initially. And I kept asking, what's going on? What's this about? And they're like, you're not in trouble. Don't worry. You didn't do anything wrong, And then I like step outside and like there's sheriffs all over the street and they all got their guns pointed at me.
But how many sheriffs would you say they were?
There was at least 15 to 20.
Okay.
It was overkill, but I guess that's just what they do these days, just because they always err on the side of caution. And
so you step outside, and what happens when you step outside?
I just am like trying to figure out what's going on, because I've never had all these guys pointing guns at me like I'm some bank robber or something. And like I walk over to my pickup truck and open the bed. I mean, I pull down the tailgate and sit down, because I don't really know what's going on. I just don't want to feel comfortable with all these cops pointing guns at me. And I got this one cop or sheriff coming up to me and he's like, hey, I need to search you right away. And I'm still not even sure what's going on. And I'm like, no, I don't feel comfortable with you searching me. Like, you have no probable cause. There's no reason for you
So they didn't tell you why they wanted you to step outside or why they wanted to search you?
No.
They just said, come outside and we want to search you.
It's like a theme that the authorities have these days where they just want to keep everybody in the dark as much as possible to like keep you really calm, and just kind of lead you on like a cattle to like slaughter. That's honestly, in retrospect, that's like really how I felt. Just like I was just trying to be really calm and like collective and together, and then they're just trying to like not inform you about what's going on as much as they can. And like it's really hard to keep your anxiety low when it's like that, when you're like just kind of being led on like you didn't do anything wrong, don't worry. And like you're just thinking to yourself, I hope they're right,
Right.
Like,
okay. So what did it turn out they actually wanted to talk to you about?
They wanted to talk to me because my mom had expressed concerns that I was like a danger to myself and others, and that I also owned a gun. And they were really imminent about the fact that I owned a firearm. They really wanted to get that gun from me, like out of caution. That was basically their excuse, was that like I might be telling the truth, but I might be lying, and I might go kill myself with my own gun. Like, it just sounds silly to have someone tell you, like, the same way you hear on the news people saying, like, you know, if you have a gun in your house, you're more likely to shoot a family member, and you're thinking to yourself, why would I do that? Like,
Yeah.
I'm not those people that does that.
Now, just out of curiosity, Ian, what kind of firearm do you own?
It's a 1022, but I no longer own it because I had to get rid of it in order to be released from the mental hospital.
Okay, now you just said something big. Now let's go to how you actually got into the mental hospital.
They just kind of kept me outside of my house.
Now, this is the same day the sheriffs came and told you to come outside of the home.
Yeah, they're keeping me there on in a standoff where they're saying I have to talk to a psychiatrist against my will, and like I'm trying to say, if they want that to happen, they have to bring them to my house, and they're telling me it could take hours. And I actually live on top of a restaurant, and they're about to open for their evening that night, so I wanted to just kind of wrap this up and stop making a scene in the neighborhood.
Right.
And I know now that was the wrong decision. I need to just make a scene as much as possible because there's a power in numbers, and once they got you alone, they can just take advantage from there.
Exactly. Now, Ian, I want to get to the point where you're actually at the mental hospital. So
Yeah.
you were taken by the sheriffs, is that correct?
Yeah, they basically were like, let's get this sped up. Let's get this going. Like, come on and let's go to the hospital. And I'm like, you know, whatever we got to do to make this go quicker. I want to just prove my innocence and get on with my night and go eat some dinner. And
Okay, so were you voluntarily went with the sheriffs to the hospital, is that correct?
I voluntarily went to have an involuntary evaluation.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess like I volunteered to be involuntarily evaluated.
Okay, and I want to point out to people, this is something that happens quite commonly. It may not be for a mental health situation, but let's say, you know, the police show up to your house. Hey, Mr. Jones, Mr. Smith, can you come down to the station for a few questions? And people voluntarily go, expecting to be released later. Is that what you were expecting, Ian?
Oh, totally. And then as soon as I get to the hospital, that's when I knew everything was wrong, because like the sheriff starts asking me to take my clothes off, and it's like you're just looking at them like, what the hell did you just ask me to do?
Mm-hmm.
And like, you heard right, take off your clothes. You gotta be in a hospital gown if you need to meet with the psychiatrist. And he's like, I know it sounds silly, you know, just do it and it'll help everything go along a lot quicker.
Okay, now Ian, I want to get to a few documents here that you were able to send us, and I was very impressed because when Ian contacted us, he said, hey, I had the situation, and I said, do you have any documents? He said, yeah, I have plenty, and just for the sake of time, I think you sent us about 20 or so. We'll go through maybe about 10 or just as many as we can in the time we have.
Right.
Right. Okay, now, just for our viewers, I will say some of this information has been redacted. Some of this was personal information about Ian himself or about the medical professionals he came in contact with, so I'll just go ahead and throw that out there. Now, I want to start with this one. This says Goleta Valley Cottage Primary, and it says patient states he was upset and talking to his mother and said, quote, sometimes I think it would just be less stress if I ended it all. States that she then, the mother, called the police and that they told him he had to come here for evaluation. Patient denies any suicidal, homicidal thoughts or plans at this time. States, quote, I was just feeling overwhelmed and said stuff I didn't mean. Now, Ian, I saw you shaking and nodding your head during our reading. So did you have any discrepancy?
It's because the story changed so many times during this process. You had, like, I had some nurses that were willing to write on paper that I'm not a suicidal or homicidal person and I don't show any evidence of it. And then later, after that same document you just read, I've got people at the mental facility writing that I look like I have poor insight and poor judgment, and like I look homeless, and like
disheveled is the word they actually used.
So of course you're going to be really out of it, you know, mentally when they've drugged you with an injection against your will. And I honestly
so when you got to the hospital, they physically drugged you?
Yes, they after I was stripped naked and put into a hospital gown, I met with the psychiatrist and they asked me some really general questions just about like, so was this a rhetorical statement? Like, you didn't really mean it? And I'm like, yeah, exactly. This is all a mistake. And I just explained it to them just like that. And I felt like the psychiatrist understood.
Mm-hmm.
But I know now they're just kind of observing me and they're not listening to anything I had to say, because I have the paper that the psychiatrist wrote as well. And she wrote on there that I admitted to wanting to hurt myself and other people with my firearm, which is absolutely not true one bit.
Okay, so I want to make sure we clarify that statement. At any point, did you threaten to hurt yourself or others with either firearms or your bare hands or anything?
But you have statements from some nurses and some authorities saying I did and some saying I didn't. So there's conflicting information amongst themselves, trying to figure out what I said or didn't say.
Okay, now I want to go.
After I met with the psychiatrist, they took me down to another emergency room, and they brought in a doctor. The psychiatrist was gone at that point. I mean, they had done their job, which was to put me on a 5150 hold for 72 hours. And they brought a doctor in, and the doctor said, well, we've got to make sure you're calm. And and I'm like, I am calm. What's going on? I still honestly thought I was going to get released after this because I had just myself with a psychiatrist. And then they're getting injections ready and vials, and they're saying, we have to take blood from you for testing, and we have to get a urinalysis, and we need to give you this shot to calm you down.
So did you consent to the blood draw or the injections?
The only thing I consented to was to pee in a little cup, because that's the only thing I felt like I would do for them without violating my personal privacy, you know?
Right. Now, Ian, I want to move fast because we don't have too much time left. I want to move on to another document. This says application for 72-hour detention, and I'll skip down if we can get a document cam to about, yeah, right about there is good. He made suicidal statements, and the patient was carrying a rifle and states he was going to shoot anyone who would try to take it. Now, I have a question just for the person who wrote this document. Yeah. Was this at the time that you were detained, or I'd just say arrested, kidnapped against your will, or was this at the medical facility? At any point, were you carrying a rifle?
I was not carrying a rifle at any point, and that's just a perfect example of the telephone game that the authorities were playing with the information and the hearsay that was involving me. I mean, it was just like making things up, basically.
Okay, now, Ian, we'll move on to some of your other documents. Now, this one says, mental health facilities report a firearm prohibition.
Go ahead. Document was signed and filled out by the same person that made up the last document, statement on the last document. And they were a nurse at the mental hospital, and they got my social security card out of my wallet without my permission in order to complete that form, which is like a firearms prohibition form that they're going to send to the California State Department of Justice in order to make sure that I'm not eligible to own, possess, or all of the above involving a firearm for at least 5 years from the date that I was released.
Okay, now on this particular document, they have checked in the box that you are a danger to yourself or to others. Now, at any point, did you ever feel, were you feeling aggressive? Were you physically aggressive to anybody at any point?
The only time I ever felt physically aggressive was in my mind, and I kept all of that to myself, because you're honestly not allowed to show any type of emotion in the mental facility. Otherwise, like per their DSM manual, they'll try to diagnose you with some type of a mental disorder just for feeling emotional.
Right, and we've actually reported on that. Mike Adams has done great work talking about that DSM.
It's really scary, and it takes a lot of like mental just strength.
Toil on you, right? Now, Ian, we have to move quick, but tell us, okay, so you're in the mental facility. Take about 2 minutes. Tell us your entire trip through the mental facility. I believe you were actually transferred at one point. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was transferred after I got injected while I was on the drugs to the mental facility via ambulance. And I stayed there for 72 hours, and I was just ignored, and like, they don't really want to treat people like people in the mental hospital. They have this attitude like you must be here for a reason, and that no one could have possibly made a mistake. Otherwise, you'd have a lawyer come and get you out of here right away. It's like, not everybody has a family lawyer. Not everybody has a family or even a lot of money in the bank to help them in these situations. And so I had to ride it out. And immediately arriving at the mental hospital, I requested to speak with like the manager, the supervisor, whoever was in charge of the unit I was staying in. And it took them about 3 days to come meet with me. But I need to say this on camera, and that this manager explained to me that the mental hospital and the entire psychiatric system is indeed a business run for profit, and that there are people like myself who slip through the cracks in order to keep the money flowing.
Now, I'll just interrupt you for 1 second. We just had on the screen your actual hospital bill, I believe it is. And if we can put that back on the screen, we have the document cam shot. were charged nearly $3,000 on this one particular bill. And I don't know if this is a separate bill or maybe an earlier bill. This says over about $2,500 on the second bill. And we can see his name is also right there at the top.
For the ambulance ride, and the other is for the hospital stay.
Okay. All right. So how long were you in the mental facilities altogether?
I was there for a total of 4 days, because at the end of my 72-hour period, they felt like because I didn't give my firearm to law enforcement and because I was still technically in possession of the firearm, they were going to push for a 5250 hold, which is much different than a 5150 hold in the sense that you'd be held for an additional 14 days in the mental hospital against your will, and you will never be allowed to own a firearm ever again. They put you on a federal database. But luckily, the judge had me released at the end of my 5150.
Right.
After 72 hours.
Now, I'm going to go to this final document that I have here, if we can get document cam of this. Now, at the end of this document, it says you were originally charged or admitted as a danger to yourself. But if we can slide back down here, it says there is not probable cause to believe that the person, as a result of a mental disorder, is a danger to self or a danger to others. That there is not probable cause to believe this person is a danger to himself or to others. So is that was obviously the evaluation that you wanted, even though that's not, what you wanted to have. You don't want to be whisked away to a mental facility, but they ultimately found that you were not a danger to yourself or to others. So what has happened since then, since your release? Are they trying to take your firearms? Have you bought any more firearms? What's going on?
Not on the record. I'm not buying any firearms, and I don't have any firearms. And I had to basically admit to them, whether they had proof or not, that I got rid of the 1022 in order for them to release me from the mental hospital. They had to have this type of peace of mind that they felt like I wasn't going to go home and shoot myself after my terrible experience in the mental hospital. And since this incident, I've just been trying to find a way to reverse this process and bring some kind of justice to light, because I just want to prove that this is all a mistake. From the start, that's all I've been trying to do, is prove that this is all a big misunderstanding. And unfortunately, what I'm finding through my troubles is that there's almost no way to hold these people that have done this accountable, just because of all the legal safety nets in place for these people. It's terrible.
That's like, now, I'll interrupt you for 1 second, and then I'll let you go ahead with your final thoughts. Ian, we have an article right here. California's gun repo men have a nerve-wracking job. This is just from March of this year. It says, now this is referring to a gun confiscation team. They are preparing to confiscate weapons from a gun owner who had recently lost his rights to possess firearms after spending 2 days in a psychiatric hospital. So that's what it says. They didn't say, was he guilty? Was he innocent? Was he sane? Was he insane? Whatever the medical term may be. It says, hey, he was in a hospital, and that was, I guess, for the purposes of this article, reason enough to detain him in a hospital and take his weapons. So, Ian, give us your final thoughts, and also how can people keep up with you and your story?
You could keep up with me and my story and check in on my Google Plus channel, which is linked to my email. My email account is ian.desantis, DESANTIS @gmail.com. Go ahead and send me an email. I'm just like a regular guy, work a 9-to-5 job Monday through Friday, and I'm just trying to get the word out to people. And people need to know they got to exercise their rights, or else they're not going to know they have those things there. That's why you got to exercise them. It's like.
And Ian, you also had a YouTube page. Is that correct?
I've got a YouTube page. The account name is Joker, JOKER 13621.
Okay.
And that's my YouTube channel.
All right, Ian DeSantis. Now, we've been warning people that this has been going on in states like California, states like New York, and this is just another person who has been a victim of the system. Like we just told you a second ago, he was cleared mentally stable, I guess you would say. He had no probable cause.
Survivor of the system.
Survivor of the system.
Because they want us to all be victims. That's the key here, is they want us to all feel disempowered. But the truth is, we have the power.
All right, Ian DeSantis, thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you, Jakari.
I want to thank Ian for sharing his story with us. Now, you guys may have noticed this happened to him, I guess, about a year ago. He was pretty traumatized by the whole incident. I'm pretty sure as anybody would, so it took him a little bit to speak out, but I'm glad he did. I definitely hope that more people will take Ian's approach and get the word out there about this imagined tyranny. I believe it was Harry Reid who said that. But anyway, if you like this broadcast, you want to see it continue, go to the InfoWars shop, the InfoWars store, and pick up this right here. You can see one of our new additions, the Paul Revere t-shirt. You guys know we had Operation Paul Revere. That's still an active thing. We're in the judging portion right now, so stay tuned for that. But you can also pick up the Paul Revere t-shirt at the InfoWars shop, and I believe that's for $19.95. And also, if you really want to support us, go to the PrisonPlanet.tv website, and you can see it right there. The guy got arrested for drinking iced tea, many more things, the Alex Jones radio show, the rants, all that, so much more. You can get yourself a 15-day free trial, and that's what truly supports our broadcast and gets the information out there. And you can give that to your friends and family also. You get, I believe, 10 memberships or 10 users for the price of one, so definitely take a look at that. Well, that's it for this edition of the InfoWars Nightly News. I'm Jakari Jackson, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Authoritarian control freaks throughout history have sought to make populations dependent. The United Nations openly has talked about using food as a weapon against the third world and the industrialized first world. State Department Memorandum 200, developed by Henry Kissinger, called for destroying the food capacity, not just of the United States, but every country in the world, so they could use food scarcity as a political weapon of control. Just a decade ago, less than 10 million Americans were on food stamps. 4 years ago, it was 25 million. It's now reached almost 50 million. Socialist health care is designed to destroy our health care system. The establishment wants you to be a bunch of cowardly, dumbed-down people who can't stand up for yourselves. That's why they're rushing to try to restrict citizens owning firearms. Because since the early 1990s, gun ownership has gone straight up, while violent crime has gone straight down by 49%. And globalist-controlled strongholds like Chicago and New York, where they've taken the citizens' guns, have the highest crime rates in the world. What am I getting at here? The system doesn't want you to be self-sufficient. That's why I promote the fact that you should go out, buy firearms, and go take lessons and learn how to use them. I want you to stand up for your birthright of liberty and freedom. During a serious meltdown, they're going to tell you, hey, you want food? Turn in your guns. And that's why we need to put the globalists in check. And then finally bring them to checkmate by being self-sufficient, by being prepared, by having a garden, by learning how to can your own foods, by having friends and family and community that will stand together. But at the heart of that is having quality, storable foods. And that's why I went out more than a decade ago and found the very best food company to be my sponsor, eFoods Direct. They're the company that I personally use for my emergency food storage preparation, whether it be for natural disasters or the tyranny that is intensifying. So give them a call, 800-409-5633. That's 800-409-5633. Or efoodsdirect.com/Alex to find the weekly and monthly specials. But they're always running the specials where you can get the free 6 meals and the eFoods Direct audio CD put together by the experts in storable foods to answer all your questions, the eFoods planning guide, the eFoods brochure, the eFoods catalog, plus 6 free meals, creamy potato soup, tortilla soup, and cheesy chicken rice, so you can sample the high-quality storable foods from eFoods Direct. They've got a bunch of other specials.
The 2-week food supply provides one adult with 81 servings of healthy, delicious, storable food for 14 days.
The 1-month food supply provides 192 servings for 28 days.
And then there's the 1-month family food pack. It will change the way you look at the food in your pantry. Every time you eat one of these meals, you are eating healthy, delicious food and saving a lot of money.
The 3-month food supply, 576 servings of storable food for 91 days.
And the 1-year food supply will provide you with 2,304 servings of healthy, delicious, storable food for 1 full year.
Your meals are as delicious and nutritious tonight as they'll be in 25 years.
Bottom line, there's a bunch of specials at efoodsdirect.com/Alex. You can also call them at the toll-free number on your screen, and they can send you a catalog with all the specials detailed and tell you about the weekly and monthly specials that they're always running. efoodsdirect.com/Alex to find all the specials or call the toll-free number. And so in closing, when you buy from efoodsdirect.com, you are supporting the radio broadcast, the nightly news, the magazine, the films, and everything we're doing. Because we're not like MSNBC or Media Matters that get government and corporate funding to bring down America and bring in tyranny. We are funded by our sponsors and you, the viewers and listeners that support them. Again, that's efoodsdirect.com/Alex or 800-409-5633. And when you're also visiting Infowars.com or PrisonPlanet.com, you can click on the banners to take you to the weekly and monthly specials. It's like the Hank Williams Jr. song, "A Country Boy Can Survive," because you can't starve us out and you can't make us run because these boys were raised on shotguns. Well, there aren't really a lot of good old boys left anymore, are there? And those that are out there are demonized and are enemy number one by Homeland Security. And good old boys come in all shapes, colors, and sizes. They're people that aren't chumps, who understand that they're going to take care of their family and that nobody else is. They're people that understand that if somebody else is taking care of them, that makes them a slave. And that the government doesn't want you dependent because they want to build a great future for you. They want to get you dependent so they can social engineer us. So the answer is get self-sufficient, become men again, and tell the New World Order to go straight to hell. Alex Jones signing off for Infowars.com and eFoods Direct, our great sponsor.